we were having the conversation about Kermit Davis. And I said, ultimately, Keith Carter is going to make a decision one way or the other. And unless something dramatically has changed in the way he is thinking and his thought process, he's not making a change this year. And so the difficult question is this. Little business 101 principle, right? The moment you determine that someone in your organization has to go, when you are an owner, a manager, a CEO, whatever, the moment you determine that someone has got to go, every minute, every day that you go without making that change is a waste, and it is a disservice to, if you're using a business example, both the employee and the employer. Does that apply apples to apples in sports? And here's the difficult question ultimately. Do you believe if Kermit Davis remains in his role as head coach at Ole Miss, that basketball 22-23 is going to be better than basketball 21-22 was?
It's hard to get much worse than 4-14 in the league. I mean, by win percentage, that's their worst record since before I was born. So it's really hard to get much worse than second to last in the conference, which is what they were. And the team that finished last is replacing their coach. So there's so many ifs for next season. That's what makes this tough for Keith. I envy his salary greatly. I envy 10% of his salary. I envy 7% of his salary. But I don't envy the decision he has to make and what could come of it. Because there are so many ifs that are required to be answered for next season to be good. If they can replace Nasir Brooks in the portal. If they can find a consistent shooter in the portal. If they can find a couple more guys in the portal. If they are able to fight off depending on who you talk to, the lot of schools, some of which with big brands that are going to be actively recruiting your best player. If Deshaun Ruffin comes back from injury 100%. That is a lot of if for next year's team to be respectable. We're not talking good. We're talking respectable. And this is twice now in the last...
And that's a good point. I want you to pick that up. But let's go point of reference here. It's not about going from 4-14 to 6-12. From 4-14 to 8-10. Because if you do that, you find yourself in the exact same place, just with a slightly better overall record and a slightly better conference record, right? If you do that. It's about, can you make a jump to competing for a spot in the NCAA tournament?
Because you're in a league now where you don't have to finish third to be a tournament team. You don't. But 2 of the last 3 years now, I mean, they finished 13th in the SEC this year at 4-14. 2 years ago, they were 12th at 6-12 in the league. It's not like this is a one-off. These are... I recognize that it's a very difficult job. Ole Miss basketball is a tough job. It's tough. You share a small state population-wise with another SEC school. Baseball's huge. It's hard to get players. When we've seen how LSU gets players, maybe that'll end soon. We know how Kentucky gets players. Don't hate the player, hate the game, but we know how Kentucky's able to recruit. But Arkansas, great program, more resources, all that. Look at how Musselman built his roster. It's a bunch of transfers. And not like Kentucky transfer and Gonzaga transfer. You got dudes from small schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess what I'm saying is I recognize it's a difficult job. It's a very difficult job. But I do think it's better than second to last in the SEC and 12th in the SEC 2 of the last 3 years. I do think it can be better than this. And so when people say things like, well, who are you going to get that's better? I don't know. I don't get paid $1 million a year to figure that out. But I know it's out there. Because the same people said the same thing when the Hugh Freeze stuff went down. Well, who are they going to get that's better? You could have gotten Lane Kiffin at that time. Now, it would have been a weird hire because he was only at FAU for a year, but better was out there. Is there a chance that you don't? Sure. Is there a chance you hire a mid-major coach that comes in and doesn't work out? Yeah. There is. It's possible that you're going through that at this moment. But if you're telling me who are you going to get that's better, I think that's a loser's mentality because there absolutely is. The Ole Miss basketball program is better than second to last in the SEC and 12th in the SEC in 2 of 3 seasons. It is better than that.
Should be, anyway.
It should be. And can that be Kermit Davis? It could. Maybe he does do well in the portal. And maybe they are able to fight off the suitors for Morrell. And maybe Ruffin does come back and continues his electric play, and they win games next year. That is possible, too. That is another thing that can happen. So maybe that's it. But when people say, oh, just punt it or you can't do any better, I don't believe that. We've seen better.
Yeah, the answer in Oxford and the answer in Starkville is not, it is not, just give up on basketball. No, that is not it. Even, I was having this conversation with someone earlier today. Arkansas is the example, right? So Arkansas doesn't have the budget that Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Alabama have. They've got a budget that is larger than Ole Miss and Mississippi State's, but by what? By how much? $20, $30 million a year? There's plenty of money, if you're smart with your money, to invest in a way that you have the chance to be successful in all 3 sports. You got to get it right, though, with the hires, right? People laughed when Arkansas hired Sam Pittman, but Hunter Yurachek saw the fit, made the hire, and has gotten some results. Eric Musselman, really good basketball coach. Morky, you made the point a second ago. Arkansas, J.D. Notte, best player on Arkansas, and one of the, he's a first-team All-SEC guy. He's a transfer. They got a bunch of guys on that roster that are transfers. Now, they got a really good recruiting class coming in.
And it's a better, more attractive job, so you're more attractive in the transfer market, but still.
Yeah, but the point is, Arkansas, from a budget standpoint, right now is good in football, they're good in baseball, they're good in basketball. It's taken them a while to get back to this point where all 3 were good because they were a disaster in football just a few years ago, and they were very average in basketball just a few years ago. There is a widely held assumption that Mississippi State is making a change. Whether it is a termination or a retirement or a resignation, whatever. Maybe we're going to look up and we're all wrong and that doesn't happen. But most people assume that Ben Howland, at the end of this season, whenever it ends, will have coached his final game at Mississippi State. Is it the same situation or is it different?